This presentation is about the Huntington County Conservation District Dirt, Gravel, and Low Volume Road Program. Today, we're talking about how we rank our grant applications and our local policies and how we award funding. Real quick, before we get into that, I do like to just review what the Conservation District is. Our goal is to protect water and soil resources within our county. Most conservation districts originated after the Dust Bowl of the 1930s, when our farmlands were literally blowing away in the wind. At that point, people really started to focus more on conserving our natural resources, and soil conservation districts were created to achieve that goal. Today, we still protect our water and soil by doing lots of community education, offering technical assistance, bringing grant funding into the county, and administering some state programs at the local level. Those programs include agricultural programs such as ag land preservation, manure management, and nutrient management planning. We protect water quality by restoring streams, planting trees, monitoring water quality, doing environmental education, and administering the erosion and sedimentation pollution control program at the county level. Many of you may be familiar with NPDES permits. These are National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits required for earth disturbance over 1 acre. I know a large portion of the audience for this grant program are municipalities who may also have building permit requirements, and so this is one area we can really work together. I always encourage folks, whether you're with a municipality or any other organization or farmer or landowner, to reach out to us if you have questions about any of these programs. And then last but not least on my list there is the Dirt, Gravel, and Low Volume Road Program, which of course is what we're talking about today. So what is the Dirt, Gravel, and Low Volume Road Program? Basically, it provides grant funding to do stormwater improvements on public roads. If anyone has further questions about that, I did do an entire webinar on that last week, which is also recorded and available on our YouTube channel. So I encourage folks to check out that for the full explanation and introduction to the grant program. Basically, this is important because water is the #1 thing that destroys our roads. And because our roads cross so many of our landscapes, it can really impact our water quality if there's road material washing off our roads and into our streams. And so it's really beneficial both for the road quality and the water health to make sure that our roads are stable. Let's see, a little bit of a lag here. Here we go. So once you're eligible for the grant program, you meet with the Conservation District to talk about some specific road project ideas, and then you can submit an application for grant funding. Behind the scenes, your applications are ranked, and once the Conservation District decides which projects will be funding each year, we sign contracts with those road owners who then do the project, get the money, and can repeat the next year. So right now it is March of 2021, and we are in this pre-application period. And today we are specifically just talking about that behind the scenes part to give you a better idea of how we rank projects so you know what to expect. Maybe this can help you decide which of your roads might be more competitive for the grant program, and just show you about some of those things that you'll need to know when applying. Quick reminder that next week we'll be talking more about how to fill out the grant application and actually design those road projects as well. Okay, so how do we rank road projects? My slide will move. There we go. So first, you turn in your application, and then we have a 4-member quality assurance board that uses a numerical scale that we use to rank every grant application. We put the applications in the order of those who get the most ranking points to the least ranking points, and the quality assurance board will recommend that the top ranked projects get funded for certain amounts. They don't make decisions, the County Conservation District Board of Directors does, and so they will review and usually approve the recommendations of the QAB. And so there are quite a few people, kind of a multi-step process that look at these applications. And this usually takes at least 2 months, each month, one of the board meetings, although that process can take a little bit longer after the application due date, which is why I don't have an exact date for when we award contracts because it can vary a little bit. The ranking sheet is 3 pages. I'm going to go over all these sections in detail, which is why I'm just breezing through that. I always hand out the application ranking sheets when I meet with folks, and it's available on our website, which I'll show you in a slide later as well. So the main way we decide which projects get funded is by looking at the environmental impact. I think most of you who are participating today are pretty familiar at this point with the fact that this is an environmentally based program. So the roads that have the biggest impact on our water quality will be the ones that get the most points and are most likely to be funded. So we look at things like the surface condition of the road, the ditch condition, how stable are the outlets where water leaves, the pipes in the roadside ditches, things like that. New this year, we added 4 lines to the bottom of this. Those headlines are highlighted in yellow there. And that means we're actually going to be looking not just on the road, but in the stream, lake, wetland, et cetera, that the road is impacting, to assess the impacts actually in the water body as well, to help give us a more complete picture of the environmental impact. The next category is the watershed quality, which isn't something that any of us have really much control over. This is determined by the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, DEP, and it's written into Pennsylvania code, different water quality achievements, I guess you could say, of the streams. Most of the streams are divided into cold water and warm water fisheries based on the types of fish that can survive there. And there's also special protection watersheds if it's a really high quality or exceptional value stream. The map that's up here is Pennsylvania's eMap online. And this is what I use. When I figure out what stream is closest to your road, I go on this website and I look up your stream and your road, and I write down what the designated use of that stream is, whether it's the cold water, warm water, exceptional value. We actually don't have very many, if any, exceptional values waters in Huntingdon County right now, but we do have some high quality streams, quite a few. And so that's one category we assign points for as well. Another category we assign points for, this is a new one for 2021, is trout stream status. This is similar but different to the water quality we just talked about, as this is based on Fish and Boat Commission data instead of DEP's data. And it really specifically has to do with trout. So if there's no trout in your stream, that'll get the least points. If you have a stream that's high enough quality that stock trout can survive in it, that will get you 5 points. Kind of the next step up would be natural reproduction trout streams that not only can support stocked trout, but the trout can survive and reproduce in it. And then class A trout streams are the best of the best, where you have a really large amount of larger trout that can survive and reproduce and stay in that stream, so they get the most points. And that's also determined with an online map. If anyone's interested, I can send you the links to these maps. They are free and public online. You can look up which of your local streams support different types of trout and have different designations. Next new category is aquatic organism passage. And aquatic organism refers to any fish, insect, crayfish that could survive in a stream. And the passage means, can they pass through your road? So this is one thing we really look at closely for road stream crossings. In these photos, you can see that the stream is much wider than the pipe where it crosses the road. And so it's pretty easy for fish and insects to wash downstream through those pipes, but not so easy for them to swim back upstream. If they can crawl on the rocks, but there's no rocks in that pipe, they can't get through. And if that water is, shallow or moving really fast, that's also hard for them to get through. And so the more of a barrier that a road pipe is to those aquatic organisms passing through the road, that's not good for the stream health. So you'll get points based on that as well. Okay, halfway there. Effectiveness of solution, this one's easy. If you have a good idea on how to fix your road, you'll get more points. If you have a bad idea on how to fix your road, you won't get as many points. The goal is for everybody to get all the points for this category. You'd almost have to completely ignore me and our program recommendations to not get points here. A couple examples that might help are drainage. And so driving surface aggregate is that really nice gravel that compacts to a really smooth, almost concrete-like driving surface. But it doesn't make sense to put that down if you haven't fixed all the road drainage first. So if you have a road that doesn't have enough drainage, you have big, deep ditches that have washed out, you don't apply for some kind of drainage improvement, like pipes to get that water away from your road, that's not a good idea, because then your DSA will just wash away. So we have to make sure we're budgeting to have enough good drainage, like adding new cross pipes, reshaping the road with road fill, creating stable ditches, those kinds of things for that to be a good eligible project. Another example of that is road springs. So where groundwater seeps up on our roads, it can create potholes. As you can see in this close-up picture on the right, where it's wet in the middle there's no fine gravel packed between the larger rocks anymore. You can just see the edge of those big loose rocks. Now they're loose because there's no fines packing them in tight. So when traffic drives over that, the rock will bump up and out of that, creating a pothole over time. So if we don't address that and put some kind of subsurface under drain in to get the water out of the road base, you're not fully addressing the water issues there. And so pretty simple. Again, fix the issues on your road. That's going to be the best grant application. The next category is project phasing. The funding for this grant program, unfortunately, is limited. In Huntington County, we have about $265,000 for the dirt and gravel road portion of the program and about $85,000 for low traffic volume roads that we can award each year. And you may be aware, $85,000 does not go very far when it comes to road work. And so sometimes we even have to phase your grant projects when you're applying for grant money for them. And if you're phasing a project on one section of the road where you do the drainage, like install the pipes one year, and the next year you want to come back and place DSA, that could be a problem because now your environmental ranking, you'll lose points on second year because you just fixed all of your drainage. And so all this category does is replaces those points and acknowledges, hey, we already fixed the drainage. This is not a complete project. We're going to replace those missing points so that you're still competitive. It's not guaranteed that you'll get money for the second phase, but this keeps you in the running. So most people don't get points for this category. You know, it might just give you projects each year that are phase 2 applications, but that's what that category is for. Okay, past project maintenance. We do have a maintenance policy, which I'll talk more in detail about later. Basically, we expect you to maintain your projects after we pay for them. And really, it's not a lot of work because all of these projects are reducing the amount of maintenance that you need to do on your roads. You know, we're already getting the water off your road. Your ditches shouldn't be washing out as much. But there's always a little bit of maintenance that needs to be done. And if you're not able to maintain your current projects, our boards aren't going to be as likely to fund future projects until we help you get up to speed with how to maintain what we've already paid for. Matching funds. There is no match required. I know some grant programs require that if you're asking for $100,000, maybe you have to come up with a 30% match and offer $30,000 towards the project. If you need $100,000, you can apply for $100,000 in dirt and gravel road money. Doesn't mean you'll get all of it. One way you can increase your chances of receiving that grant is by offering an in-kind match. So for example, if you have $13,000 to put toward your road improvement and you need $50,000, we looked at what percent your in-kind matches out of that grant request. So we divide those numbers, which in this case would be 0.26 or 26%. And so when you look at the ranking criteria, that would put you in the highest category and you would receive 10 out of 10 points in this matching funds category on your project ranking. If you are able to offer $0, you get 0 points for this category. So I do encourage folks to offer whatever you can, even if it's just, you know, as a township secretary helping with paperwork who gets paid so much per hour, you know, just your in-kind labor even can help you with that. History and cooperation status. New applicants get some bonus points for being new to the program and applying. If you are non-cooperative with the program goals and requirements and you keep applying, you'll lose points for that. Thankfully, that's not a category we've really had to use as of late. And then most folks do fall in that middle category where you've completed dirt, gravel, and low volume road projects and you did a good job with it. And so you get just like a standard even amount of points. You're not being docked. And so this allows us, you know, to give a few bonus points for new folks who join. And last but not least, bonus points. This is meant to encourage folks to kind of go above and beyond your educational requirements. So in order to be eligible to apply for the grant program, one person in charge of road work for the applying entity has to do an environmentally sensitive maintenance ESM training at least every 5 years. These people include township supervisors, borough council members, borough managers, secretaries, roadmasters, and road crew members. If more than one person goes to the training, every additional person gets a bonus point. If anybody goes to the training more than every 5 years, that gets you a bonus point. And if you attend outreach events organized by the Conservation District within 1 calendar year of your application due date, you get bonus points. So for those of you attending live tonight, congratulations. You're earning bonus points by being here, which is probably why you're here. If you're watching this recording later, I apologize that you missed out on this opportunity, but I hope you're still learning a lot. And that is how we rank projects. So in summary, the environmental impact is the biggest thing we look at, but you do get points depending on what streams and water bodies you're near. We looked at how living things can pass through road stream crossings. whether or not you have a good idea for your project, whether or not this is a continuing phase of a project, if you're able to maintain your previous projects, how much funding you might contribute towards the project, if you cooperate with the program goals, and if you go above and beyond your educational requirements. So in summary, again, those are the categories we look at. And then the top ranked projects that receive the most points are the ones that get recommended for funding. What's my next slide? Oh, you can find this information online. So if you go on our website under Dirt and Gravel Roads, there's a section, a page that's forms and reference documents, and that will have blank grant applications, the completion paperwork, how we rank the projects, local policies, some maintenance information, some really helpful documents on our website there. And I think, Selena, I'll just check in here. Are there any questions about how we rank projects to look at yet? All right, I will keep talking. So next we're going to talk about policy, everybody's most exciting and favorite topic. Statewide, this is a statewide grant program. There are policies that apply to everybody in the state. I am not going to be talking about that tonight because it would take about 5 hours, and I'm not going to subject you to that. That's the reason you go to the ESM training and that you work with me at the Conservation District when you apply, so that we can help make sure you're in compliance with all of those things. What I do want to talk about is the policies that we have specific just to Huntington County, because this isn't something that you would have gotten in a different training. So our Quality Assurance Board, the people who rank your grant applications, also create our local policies. And these were updated just in February of 2021. So I'll be going over an overview of the local policies you should know about, including all the updates. This 4-page document is a contract attachment. So for those of you who have completed a dirt, gravel, or low volume road project in the past, or who will be receiving a grant this year, you'll be getting a copy of this in your contract paperwork. And in case you don't read every letter of every sentence of your attachments very closely, at least make sure you're looking at the last 2 pages of this, because that's where really the meat of our local policies are. And for anyone else who's interested and wants more information and actual wording after this presentation, again, this is available on our website all of the time for anybody to look at. So a large group of our policies, being 3 policies is pretty small, have to do with how we allocate funds. So any eligible applicant in Huntington County is allowed to submit up to 3 project applications each year between the dirt and gravel and low volume road categories. As you picked up on, I'm sure there's 2 different pots of money, and we do rank and award those funds separately for each pot of money. So you can put in 3 dirt or gravel applications, 1 dirt or gravel, and 2 low volume. Just any combination of those 2 categories, but only 3 total. However, 75% of the applications ranked for each program have to be funded before you can get a second grant within one program, which is a really wordy way to say don't expect to receive more than 1 dirt and gravel and 1 low volume road grant maximum each year. And that's assuming you apply for both programs. We only are able to fund about 30 to 50% of the applications we receive. We don't ever really get close to that 75%. So if you put 2 dirt and gravel applications in, or 3, you're competing against yourself for which of your applications will rank the highest. And so that's something that if you have multiple roads you would like to apply for grant money on, I can work with you to figure out which one might be more competitive, and you can maybe just focus on that grant application. Or if the road you really want to get funded would rank a little below your other grant application, maybe don't put the other grant application in if it's not your priority, things like that. This is just good to be aware of. And third on this list, we do reserve the right to limit the amount of funding allocated to individual projects. And that's just to help us make sure we're awarding a reasonable amount of money to each project. If our top 5 ranked projects are all requesting $100,000 and we don't have $500,000 to give, we have to make sure we're giving a reasonable amount of money. If it's a project that has a lot of cross pipes, a lot of drainage work, a lot of driving surface aggregate, that's something that we can phase by doing the drainage first and then the DSA second. If it's a stream crossing replacement, we can't exactly rip out the stream pipe and then wait until next year to get money to put a new pipe in. That's an all or nothing project. And so if our top ranked projects are really close like that, we might limit the funding for a project that can be phased in order to give a reasonable amount of money to a project that can't be phased. We always try to fully fund the top ranked projects first, of course, but sometimes we do have to make some slight exceptions just to make the amount of money we have fit the request that we have. We also have non-pollution standards. As an environmental program, we want to make sure that nothing we put on the roads is harmful to the environment. And we have updated this to explicitly include that we are no longer allowing bags or containers of concrete mix stacked for piped head walls or end walls. They're not allowed to be used for that. And that's because it pollutes the environment, unfortunately. So here's a newly constructed pipe end wall made of bags of cement mix. Here they are 6 months later, and they're faded. That's going to happen in the sun. But when you zoom in, you see that the paper has started to peel and flake away. It started to set, but already to crack and crumble. So the point is, these bags of cement mix aren't meant to be used individually like this. They're meant to be mixed with water and crushed rock and then poured into a form to make a concrete wall. When you're not using them in that intended way, they don't tend to last as long as we really need them to. So here's a picture of an end wall built this way that's more like 2 years old. And some of you probably look at this and say, well, Sherry, it's still there. It's 2 years old and it hasn't fallen apart. What's the problem? Well, the problem is all that paper has peeled and flaked off, and extra paper just thrown in the environment is considered litter. And then if you look closely, you should be able to see all the hairline cracks in there. Water will get into those cracks, and then in the winter, when that water freezes and expands, it'll widen the cracks. And so over time, it'll crumble and fall apart. You know, when we rely on the rainwater to wet and cure this cement, it happens unevenly, and it doesn't really get mixed and set the way that it's intended to, and it just doesn't last as long as we want it to. Maybe it'll last 5 or 10 years, but if we use something like natural stone or properly poured and precast concrete, that'll last decades. And that's really what we want, as low maintenance as possible. I don't want you to have to worry about going back 5 years later and restacking bags of concrete if we could have just stacked rock and been done with it. So here's one that's just 6 months old. You see the grass is growing up between it. That actually helps hold it in place. Last year, I did a project where we removed head walls and end walls built of stone that were made by the Civilian Conservation Corps and were decades old and in excellent shape. And then we just reused the rock, and they'll last decades longer. And so that's really what we're looking for long term. Again, you can use precast concrete or pour in place, but just not the stacked bags used in a way that's not really recommended. If you can't find rocks on site, going back to this picture, we actually found all those rocks when we excavated across the road to put the new pipe in. A lot of times in wooded areas, you can find rocks in the woods that the landowners don't care if you take and use on the road. But if you can't do that, you can buy pallets of landscaping stone, and it doesn't have to be that fancy, you know, brick block shaped stuff that you have to be really careful about stacking. It can be this natural rough rock. The picture here, these are a little bit maybe smaller and thinner than are ideal, but they work pretty well. And so that's another option, is that you can buy that and incorporate that in your grant. The grant will pay for that. The point is the grant won't pay for the stacked bags of cement. Okay, so that's one big policy update. Another big area that we updated is how we do low volume roads. So one thing that's always been the case, the traffic count to prove that you do have low traffic volume on your road does have to be submitted with the grant application. And what we updated is how we deal with paving. In the past, paving has always just been eligible as a patch over any drainage features we install, and that is still the case. However, what would happen is when we see roads like this, that surface isn't stable. You're going to have erosion and traffic issues on a road like this. So people would apply to return this road to driving surface aggregate because we don't pay to pave it. And that can be a really great thing. Some of these low volume roads are really only considered paved because they've had chip seal or tar and chip placed on them as dust control. And if you don't have a lot of traffic or not a lot of heavy traffic, you can get away with a really nice gravel. DSA is like 90% less dusty than most other types of aggregate. And so that can still serve the same purpose. And it's easier to maintain because you can regrade it instead of having to place future seal coats. However, sometimes these roads are paved because they really need to be paved, that they have a little bit heavier traffic. Maybe they're near the upper end of that traffic count limit, and it doesn't make sense to put gravel on them. That's just another picture of a low volume road that is really deteriorated, and it doesn't make sense for us not to address the surface issues here, the surface stability. But if we put gravel on it and you have a lot of heavy traffic, DSA honestly is not the best solution for every road. At the end of the day, it's still unbound gravel. There's no asphalt, bituminous, emulsified, anything holding it together other than the compaction of the aggregate itself. And that is really, really great for some roads, but it's not perfect for every road. And so what we did is we updated our policy. Those small quantities of paving over drainage features, of course, still allowed. Sealed surfaces alone have never been eligible for funding. So if you are just looking for money to pave your road, this is not the program for you because we don't have enough money to do it. Again, $85,000 does not go that far when you're really overhauling big road projects. For low volume road projects, just low volume, we're not in the business of paving gravel roads because again, we don't have money for it. Just for low volume roads, if you are doing a comprehensive project that you're fixing all drainage and road-based issues and restoring the surface is a big component of that, sealed surfaces now can be considered as an alternative to DSA, and our board will look at that on a case-by-case basis. And so basically paving is eligible now, but really still not a main part of the program. It just doesn't make sense for us to put DSA on some of these low volume roads if that's not an appropriate driving surface. It's the same thing as, oh, well, if I put one less cross pipe in, it's cheaper now. In the long run, that's not cheaper because you actually need that on the road. I don't want to be putting DSA down that falls apart before it should, just because we didn't want to pay that little bit extra for, you know, pavement or chip seal up front. That's kind of where that policy came from. As always, routine maintenance, including routine maintenance seal coats for sealed surfaces, are not eligible for grant funding. I'll talk a little bit more about that shortly. And if we do pay for a sealed surface with the low volume road money, and that's just left to deteriorate over time, like you saw in those previous pictures, that project area will be ineligible for future resurfacing with this grant program. So our board really wants to focus still on doing those really good drainage improvements. That's a big bang for your buck, because we're getting that water that destroys your road away from it. We're going to consider paving roads where it makes sense, but again, it's still not a huge component of the program. Any questions up to this point? I mean, I don't know if anybody typed in any questions. Okay. The rest of these policies aren't really new. There's just a couple more here. I'm probably past half an hour. I'm just at half an hour. I'll try and be quick with this. Contract amendments. State policy does allow us to increase the amount of money or time you have to do your project. And all requests for contract amendments are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the Conservation District Board of Directors, and is always dependent on available funds. As you're probably well aware by this point, we have more requests for grant funding than money to award. And so additional funds are rarely available to award to projects. If we do have any additional funding, priority is given to project items necessary to achieve environmental goals of projects. So that picture I showed you of a spring in the road is on a funded project that we didn't see that spring before when we planned it. It just popped up. And so that's something where now we need to make sure that there's money to pay for a little piece of underdrain there, which actually something else in that project is being eliminated. So it's going to kind of break even. But should you need additional funding, those are the kinds of things where we can't pay for DSA until we fix all the drainage issues. And so if I point out a spring and say, you need to fix this, that's the type of situation where it's more likely that you would receive additional funding for that. Again, it's never guaranteed because we don't usually have additional funds, but we do want to work to make sure all of our projects are addressing what the road needs. And so that's something that there is a little bit of flexibility on should we have available funding. Then end date extensions are rare because we have spending requirements. If we're not able to get that grant money onto roads within 24 months of when the state budget passed, the year that funding was awarded, there's a chance we'll lose it. And so we can't usually extend the end date because we've already given you as much time as we can when we sign the contract. But there are exceptions, specifically like if a permit is delaying a project. So again, we accept written requests for amendments. I really encourage you just to reach out to me if you think you need one, and we'll talk about the situation and see what makes sense. And just know that with the time extension, we may need require from the state as well as our Conservation District Board to approve that. So we do have a policy on amendments. And the last one here is about maintenance. So as I said, routine maintenance is not eligible for the grant program. It's really those bigger improvements where it's not just replacing the one cross pipe on your road, but if you need 3 new ones and to replace the one, that's what we're looking to do. Once we pay for a project, you're expected to maintain it for at least 5 years or the practical life of whatever practice was installed. Like those stream crossing pipes should last a lot more than 5 years. We don't expect them to be gone that quick. You're expected to regularly inspect your projects and perform necessary maintenance. The Conservation District may also inspect completed projects. I do not make a point of making rounds on that because that's very time intensive, but because I meet with all of you every year, and when I say all of you, most of the municipalities who participate, I'm probably going to be checking on your projects just to see how they're doing if I'm in the area. And if we notice that you're not doing a good job maintaining them, you may be ineligible for future grants until we're able to get you back up to speed on maintenance. Again, this is not meant to be any kind of punishment, but it's just indicative of a problem or some misunderstanding if we're seeing old projects not being maintained, and we want to fix that before moving forward with new projects. Examples of maintenance expectations. Don't rip out what we put in the road. That's as simple as leaving the pipes in place to not plowing off your DSA when you plow your snow, which I know can be tricky. But here's a picture where you can just see a big pile of aggregate on the edge of the road, and that was probably plowed off with the snow. Traffic will make that happen too to some extent, and that's where you just have to regrade your roads. When you start getting that aggregate going off to the side or rutting or washboarding, you should be doing some regular grading and recompacting your road when you start to see those things. I didn't have a picture here of that DSA rutting, but we saw that earlier with the paving portion of the presentation. Your pipes do get clogged, clean them out so they don't overtop on your road and wash your road down into your stream. We can't prevent large trees, branches from falling down. You got to pull those out, simple things like that. Leaves are really a main thing that can clog our ditches, and so you should be removing those. And I think I actually have a video here. We'll see if this works. That's a leaf blower cleaning out roadside ditches. Can you guys see that okay? I can see it playing. I hope you all can too. Those leaf blowers are really nice because it's super low maintenance. You don't have, if you were to use a grader or a bulldozer or something like that to try to clean out your ditches, and you disturb it all up, now you have to go back, put the soil back in, get the grass to grow, put your rocks back in place, maybe put new rocks in place. And that's just more work. If you can just blow those leaves out and walk away, that is the easiest, simplest, cheapest thing you can do. I do know that there are contractors and municipalities in Huntington County that do this. If anybody has questions about that, let me know and I can put you in contact with some folks who use this maintenance technique, and you can learn more about it if you're interested. So to help you remember all of that, there goes the video again. We have a new document just kind of explaining some of these routine maintenance tips to help you understand kind of what we're expecting and just to help you out with maintaining your roads long-term. I will be providing this at the completion of every dirt, gravel, and low volume road project, but it's available right now on our website. If anybody's interested, let me know. I can email this to you or direct you to our website. You can go and find it yourself if you're interested in that. So I wanted to end on that because we have a new resource available, which is always exciting. And just to review very briefly, our local policies help us decide how to divide funds among our top-ranked applicants, restricts us from using concrete mix bags to build pipe walls. We updated our paving policy, and we have policies on contract amendments and project maintenance. Just a review on how this works. There's your little cycle again, which I know all of the live participants have heard quite a few times now. Reminder that applications are due June 30th. You can be meeting with me as soon as next week if you are available. We can look at some roads and be working on this. And next week, we do have one more webinar next Tuesday, March 30th, 2021 at 6 p.m. where I'll talk about project design and filling out the grant application. That will not be the end all be all of everything you could possibly know by any stretch, because trying to fit it into 30 or 40 minutes, we'll have to kind of do an overview, but I'm hoping that that'll provide some really helpful information because I do get lots of questions about filling out the grant application, and I wanted to share some information on that. So as always, if you're interested, contact us at the Conservation District. The 6 in our phone number is highlighted because that has been an issue. 1627 used to work and it does not go to our office anymore. It's out of my control, out of Selena's control. That's just part of the building. So make sure you're calling 627-1626. Option 5 will take you to the Conservation District and we can help you out with any questions you have. So with that, thank you all so much for attending. I hope this was informational and you learned some things and this will help you with your grant applications. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to take them now. Otherwise, have